if I told you that stupidity has become not only acceptable today, but even profitable? That being loud, superficial, and proud of your ignorance has become a ticket to success? Because that's exactly what our world looks like. You don't have to understand, you just have to smile. You don't have to know the facts, you just have to make a lot of noise. Think for a moment. When was the last time a deep thought broke through the trends? When was reflection given more attention than a scandal? We live in an era where a 15-second video of antics has a bigger impact on social awareness than a philosophical book, where funny faces, flashy titles, and exaggeration gather millions of views, where philosophy is too difficult, too slow, a system that teaches us it's better to be liked than wise, that it's better to react than to think, and that ignorance, as long as it's flashy, can become a lifestyle. The algorithm doesn't seek the truth, it seeks clicks. Platforms don't promote knowledge, they promote emotions, and that's why we see stupidity stop being a weakness and become a strategy. Today it pays to pretend to be dumb. People with massive reach create the image of simpletons, not because they are, but because it works. Simplified slogans, memes, shocking behaviors, that gets clicks, that sells. But what about those who want to speak the truth, who want to understand, analyze, doubt? They drown in the noise, too difficult, too serious, too uncomfortable. In a society that learns to react, not understand, stupidity becomes the new currency. Ask yourself, when did we start confusing visibility with value? When did we start treating noise as knowledge? What you see on the internet is not just random trends, it's programming our minds. We learn that being dumb is a game you can win, that you don't need to know, you just need to look real. You don't need to be right, you just need to provoke a reaction. But why does this work? Why does stupidity sell? It's not just a cultural change, it's psychology in action. In a world full of anxiety, uncertainty, and information we don't understand, simplicity becomes a refuge. You get on your phone, scroll, smile at a dumb joke, click a headline that confirms your beliefs. You don't have to think, you don't have to analyze. It's pleasant, it's light, it's instant, and that's the trap. The more something seems simple, the more our brain accepts it as true. This is the effect of cognitive fluency. The easier it is to consume, the more credible it seems. That's why complex ideas lose. Essays seem tiring. Long lectures, like homework. Because the algorithm trains us. It feeds us ease, lies, and instant gratification. And we learn that hard things are bad, that thinking hurts, that truth doesn't pay. The culture of irony and escape. Over time, humor becomes our armor. We joke about politics, diseases, even death. Not because it's funny, but because it's easier to laugh than to feel. Irony becomes a survival strategy. Sarcasm replaces analysis. Depth, too overwhelming. It's not that people don't want to understand, they're tired. And the internet offers a drug. Immediate, light, simple. Every like is dopamine. Every comment is a small shot of attention. Every flashy headline is like fast food for the brain. And just like with fast food, the more you eat it, the harder it is to return to real nourishment. A philosophical essay, too long. A debate on ethics, too serious. But it's not your fault, it's the system. It's not you who chose superficiality. It was sold to you. Social media platforms aren't designed to teach, they're designed to keep you as long as possible. They don't promote wisdom, they promote emotion. They don't reward truth, they reward reaction. And the entertainment industry adjusts without hesitation. Stupidity sells. Dramas generate more clicks than documentaries. False conflicts are more profitable than real analysis. Politicians, they don't need a plan, they just need a show. The simpler the message, the more votes. Because today's elections are won not by leaders, but by content creators. Abna. And here's the crux of the matter. It's not just a problem with the internet, it's a civilizational problem. When the system punishes thinking and rewards reaction, when truth is too slow and lies are spectacular, when young people learn that being dumb is being popular, it's no longer just a cultural crisis, it's a crisis of consciousness. Because if we don't stop in time, intelligence will become unnecessary, knowledge will become a luxury, and stupidity will become the norm. And it won't matter what you know. What will matter is how well you can sell it. This isn't a film against people. It's a film against a system that taught us that thinking doesn't pay. If you want to build a different culture, start with yourself. Don't scroll, stop, don't react, think. Don't look for the easy, look for the true. Because only then do we have a chance to regain something we've truly lost, the dignity of understanding. Stupidity as a tool of control. Because you see, stupidity in this world is no longer just a consequence, it's increasingly becoming the goal. If society doesn't think, it's easier to lead. If people don't ask questions, they don't resist. If they don't have patience for analysis, they swallow any narrative. The dumber the society, the more obedient it becomes. This isn't a new idea. In ancient Rome there was a concept, panem et circenses, bread and circuses. Give people food and entertainment, and they won't ask for anything more. And what do we do today? Instead of bread, discounts and fast food. Instead of circuses, TikTok, reality shows, memes, dramas, challenges. A person fed and entertained doesn't ask questions. And if they start, they'll get another dose of noise. Imagine Socrates in 2020. He creates a channel, speaks calmly, asks questions, seeks the truth. He gets drowned out by influencers from self-development, mocked by ironic memes, and silenced by an algorithm that doesn't like silence. Why? Because philosophy doesn't sell quickly. Because truth doesn't work in turbo mode. Because thinking requires patience, and today that's a luxury. Socrates was sentenced to death for corrupting the youth, and today, he'd just be banned for low engagement. Mirror society. Who do we really reward? Every system rewards what it considers valuable, and our system rewards noise, extremism, simplification. It's not a coincidence, it's a mirror of our collective priorities. If millions of people choose what's easy, fast, and stupid, it's not just the fault of the platforms, it's a signal that there's something we really don't want to feel. Perhaps stupidity has become a form of escaping responsibility. Because if I don't understand anything, if I don't analyze anything, then I'm not responsible for anything. Ignorance, if packaged correctly, becomes comfortable. And comfort is a god today, a god who demands no sacrifice, only likes. Systemic pathology, anti-intellectualism. This is no longer just a personal choice, it's a social epidemic. Educated people are ridiculed as disconnected from reality. Scientists as sellout experts. Thinkers as boring, lifeless people. Anti-intellectualism isn't new, but now it has global tools. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, anything that requires reflection is automatically cut out, because reflection takes longer than 8 seconds, and that's too long to hold the thumb's attention. Stupidity is a political choice. You can't escape what's happening in politics. Today, the most effective politicians are not leaders, they're actors in an eternal show. Election campaigns, they're not plans, they're narratives. It's a war of emotions, not facts. A politician who speaks in complex language loses. A politician who screams, divides, simplifies wins, because it's not the one who knows who wins, but the one who looks like they know. And this model works globally. But you have to understand one thing. Intelligence today is an act of resistance. In a world that rewards stupidity, reading a book is a revolution. Watching a long documentary is disobedience. Asking questions is a threat to the system. You won't change the world immediately, but you can start with yourself. You can create a space around you where depth is valued. You can teach others that thinking isn't elitist, it's human. And you can remind that truth, even if difficult, is more liberating than any illusion. A world where intelligence becomes rare is a world that loses direction. But every society has a turning point, a moment when someone stops and says, enough. Maybe that someone is you today, because if you've made it this far, it means you're not afraid to think. You're not afraid to see more. You're not afraid to doubt. And change starts with people like that. Silence as a threat, the philosophy no one hears. Notice that in a world of constant noise, silence becomes revolutionary. When you stop talking but start listening, something changes, not just in you, but around you. That's why the modern system is so afraid of silence. Silence is the space where questions are born, and questions are a threat to any structure based on reaction, not reflection. In silence you start seeing more. You start feeling that something is off. You start thinking. And that's exactly what the system doesn't want, because silence doesn't generate profit. Silence doesn't trigger clicks. Silence doesn't sell ads, but silence brings a person back to themselves, the school of thinking, or the training of obedience. And since we're talking about thinking, we can't skip over education. What does school really teach? Does it teach how to think, or just how to pass? Does it teach asking questions, or just answering according to the key? The education system in many countries resembles a production line more than a temple of knowledge. Students aren't guided to discover, they are trained to reproduce. Curiosity isn't built, fear of making mistakes is built, and then the same students who were afraid to ask questions for years enter adulthood and have no questions, because no one taught them how, because depth has been reduced to tests, points, and grades. Think about how we talk about important matters today. We don't say something is complex, we say it's boring. We don't say something requires effort, we say it isn't worth it. We don't search for meaning, we search for content. Words that once carried weight are now empty shells. Philosophy sounds elitist, Reflection seems like something for old people. Empathy, often used as a PR decoration. But language is not just a tool for description. It's the matrix of our thinking. If you speak in simple slogans, you think in simple categories. If your language consists of just shortcuts, emojis and shrill tones, the world around you will also become shortened, flattened, and devoid of depth. That doesn't mean we should speak in incomprehensible jargon, but we must rebuild the meaning of words, to rebuild the meaning of life. The aesthetics of stupidity. When appearance becomes content. Nov. Take a look at the aesthetics of contemporary content. Thumbnails with wide open mouths, colors like in cartoons, fonts screaming like a clearance sale, movement, flash, sound, a permanent symphony of distraction. It's not a coincidence. It's design that operates on a biological level. It grabs attention, stops the gaze, and kills tranquility. Because tranquility requires space, and that space has been filled with aesthetics that reward hysteria. Everything is the best, shocking, amazing. There's no scale, only extremes, and over time, either you adapt or you disappear. Either you're loud or you're invisible, trapped in a loop, a society with no exit. So the question is there an escape? Can we still create space for thinking when everything around screams, don't complicate, don't analyze, just scroll? You can. But first you need to notice you're in a trap. Most people don't consciously choose stupidity. It came to them dressed as convenience. It slipped in through the screen, through memes, through recommended for you. That's why this film isn't an accusation. It's a mirror. Because if you've recognized this pattern in yourself, it means you still have a choice. And choice is the beginning of freedom. Stopping is an act of defiance. Asking a question is a gesture of courage against a world that taught us only to click. If you want to change the world, you don't have to scream. You just need to start listening to the silence. You just need to stop fearing depth. You just need to dare to be conscious. Because every revolution begins not in the streets, not on stage, not online, but in someone's quiet, solitary act of thinking. Maybe it's in you. Stupidity as an escape from existence. Perhaps all that we today call stupidity is not just a problem of technology, trends, or systems. Maybe it's a deeper existential mechanism. Because what if stupidity is not ignorance, but a shelter from the pain of existence? Thinking hurts. Awareness hurts. Philosophers, from Kierkegaard to Camus, spoke about this without hesitation. Awareness of existence is one of the most burdensome experiences of a human. That's why so many people choose distraction instead of focus, laughter instead of reflection, noise instead of silence. Because if you stop, if you look deeper, you'll see something many don't want to see. You'll see meaninglessness, chaos, time, and the end. That the answers you seek do not exist. Then it's easier to laugh at philosophers. It's easier to call them detached from reality. It's easier to dive into Instagram than into Heidegger. Because Heidegger won't give you dopamine. He'll give you a question about being, and that doesn't bring peace. So stupidity becomes not so much a sin, but a survival strategy in a world without instructions. From history we know one thing. When thinking becomes undesirable, ideologies start speaking for people. When society stops asking, when it stops inquiring, someone else writes the answers. That was the case in the 20th century, in totalitarian regimes, which grew not just on propaganda, but on the cognitive laziness of the masses. Because you don't need to impose tyranny by force, if people themselves stop understanding what freedom is. Today, thinking is not just a matter of intellect, it's a moral choice. Because if you don't think, someone else thinks for you, and whoever thinks for you controls your life. So the question is no longer just, can I think deeply? But, do I have the courage to think, even when the world doesn't want me to? This is no longer just philosophy. It's the ethics of everyday life. Because every decision, even the one you make while scrolling, is either an expression of freedom or an act of submission. Stupidity that reproduces itself. And remember, stupidity doesn't stay still, it replicates. Every trend that rewards emptiness, every viral post that simplifies reality, every decision to stay silent when you should speak, is a new link in the chain of dumbing down. We no longer need censorship, we have the scroll. We no longer need propaganda, we have algorithms. And that's why your decision to stop, to think, to understand, is not just an individual gesture. It's an act of resistance against a culture that trains you. The final word, you are not alone. It may seem like you're alone, that no one wants to listen for longer than 15 seconds, that philosophy is dead, that the world belongs to those who scream the loudest. But the truth is different. You're not alone. There are more of us, people who want to think, who prefer truth over comfort, who understand that a person's value is not measured by reach, but by the depth of their vision. This film is a signal that there is another way. That depth doesn't have to be boring. that questions are worth more than answers, and that thinking, even though it's hard, is the most human thing we can do. Thank you for making it this far. It means this world hasn't lost yet.